Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Paul Smirnov, and he comes to us with a background in HR. And I'll let Paul do a little bit of an intro on himself, and then we'll get to what was like into kids so that we can follow his journey. So, Paul, what are you up to these days?
So thank you so much, Luki. So my name is Paul, and I am an HR professional currently working at a bank, at a major bank in Canada. I work as a talent acquisition analyst and help with Workday solutions and testing and troubleshooting for recruiters. My aspirations would be to go into the technical side of Workday and see where things go. That's where I am now. And for what my past was, I was basically born in Lithuania, and I came here as an immigrant at 9 years old. After that, I stayed here for 3 years, grade 5 to 8 in middle school, which after that, I went to Ireland, where I stayed for 9 years, finished my high school there, and also my degree in Bachelor of Science of Human Resource Management. Ireland was a great opportunity to learn about other cultures. The country itself is great. The weather might be not be so great, but it's okay. And I really valued my education there. My professors were great. And after that, I decided to come back to Canada because I felt like it was my place to be here and develop my career.
Cool. And I'd love to dive a little bit more into each of those. So what were things, what were you like as a kid? So growing up in Lithuania, what were some of the earliest, fondest memories, or I don't know how much of them you had, and then maybe we'll go into kind of each big move. So what were things like in Lithuania?
So in Lithuania, I guess my family wasn't the wealthiest. We were, struggling at some point. So my dad decided when I was 3 years old, my dad decided to immigrate to Canada for economic reasons, which left my mom alone with my brother. I have a twin brother, and then what happened was it was at first we were struggling because my dad couldn't send us, support us in a way that he wanted to because of the struggles in Canada as an immigrant. However, after a while, when I was around 6 or 7, things stabilized, and I went from kindergarten, then I went to school. What I would say my fondest memories in Lithuania is just spending time with all my family, so my aunt, my grandma, my granddad, and so on. Because when you immigrate, I guess you leave all the family behind and kind of just have your immediate family to fall back on. So I guess my fondest memories would be the time that I spent with my extended family.
Cool. So you made the transition into Canada, and you grew up here for a while, and then moved to Ireland. But what were things like in Canada? How was the adaptation from Lithuania to Canada?
So I guess the hardest part about adapting to Canada was, of course, learning a new language and a new culture, I guess. So the first year I was here, I was still learning English, still just getting to know the culture and how things operated, because in Lithuania, things are a bit harsher than in Canada. You just have to stand up for yourself more. Everybody is more, I guess, not even aggressive, but I guess they wouldn't try to, let's say there's much more support here than in Lithuania for an average kid. And I had to learn to accept, I guess, help in a way, but also adapt to people in a way that people want to help, and they always want to help you out if they can. So that would be the main change I would say. Of course, there's different things, like the weather was a bit more harsher here in the winter,
Sure.
yeah, but it was fun building snowmen and stuff, and stuff like that. However, I think that would be the main change. And of course, I struggled with English for a bit, but again, as a kid, you learn the language pretty fast, so it was okay. Yeah.
And I'm curious about the part where you say you had to learn to take help. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a story, maybe one of the earlier ones that said, okay, this is the first time you say, you know what, it's actually okay to take help. Can you describe
Well,
one of those times?
yeah, that is a good question. Let me think for a second. So I guess there was a time when I went to elementary school. This was grade 5, I believe, and the teacher, we I forgot my pencils. I mean, I know it's a small thing, but I forgot my pencils at home, so I didn't have anything to write with for the test, and I was kind of afraid to say that I don't have a pencil to write with the test, to, as I thought I might have been gotten in trouble, because they would say, why didn't you bring a pencil? You knew you had a test. So I guess, and they just, after that, I realized that some other kid just asked for the same thing. He asked for a pencil, and I asked for a pencil as well, and there were no repercussions in a way. So that's how I learned, I guess, to take help. That was one of the moments, I guess, but there were many like that.
Yeah, I think it's those small ones that make it easier. And like, oh,
Yeah.
if you're not used to it, it doesn't seem like well, it seems like a big deal, but to most people, it's like, oh yeah, why didn't you just ask? But it just seems like a little bit of disconnect in culture. So,
Exactly.
tell us a little bit about like moving to Ireland. So, what was the decision to move there? And like, how did you decide on your degree? Because I'm guessing there were some sort of influences in order for you to do that and choose the program
Yeah.
you went into.
I guess, yeah. So moving to Ireland was because my family had some problems. So my dad stayed in Canada, and my mom and my twin went to Ireland to live with my grandmother. My grandmother moved to Ireland 3 years before that. So when we just went to Canada, and she went to Ireland, they say, I guess. So the decision was made because again, there were some struggles in Canada because of the family issues, and my mom decided to come to Ireland. In Ireland, again, at first, the adaptation curve was difficult because again, the culture is different. Even though everybody speaks English, again, even the accent is different. For example, so when I went to Ireland for the first time, for 2 weeks or so, I really I couldn't understand anything, honestly. I at first, when I went into a taxi, we thought that the taxi person was speaking Irish instead of English, because we just didn't understand the accent. However, after a while, after a month or two, I started getting used to the culture and the accent. However, one of the biggest like culture shocks as well when we went to Ireland was schools, because it was a one gender school. So a boys school or a girls school, and everybody also had to wear uniforms, which I was not accustomed to as well, you would say. So again, that took some transition to like understand that Ireland is still a religious country in a sense, and that's why they have one gender schools, and you needed to adapt in a way in terms of understanding the Catholic values that they had, and so on. About my degree choice, so actually I had two choices to make for my degree. I was really interested in computers, so maybe I was thinking about becoming something in IT or a software developer, something like that. But I also liked talking to people, and in my head, if I became a software developer, I would just sit at the office all day
Right.
and and just code or something. So I didn't like that prospect either. So in the end, I decided to go to HR, because I kind of like talking to people and getting to know their stories. However, I also like the business and money, I guess. So that would, I don't know, in my head, people and business connected in the HR. So yeah, I chose HR. After that, after the 4 years and doing some internships at a charity in a hotel, I decided that HR is great. However, I still want to do something with computers. So I want to go into like something in between of computers and HR. So basically, I did a lot of informational interviews with my professors, with people I found on LinkedIn, and I decided that I wanted to go into some kind of HRAS system testing or something similar. So my current role fits me in a way that I'm a really analytical. I have to understand computers, but I also work in HR and speak to people.
That's interesting. And can you, well, maybe for my benefit, because the schools that I know, you don't really bridge like the science and the HR part. Like it's usually separate. Like to have computer science and an HR one would be separate. So is that kind of the case in the university and college, that you had the flexibility to kind of cross schools and I guess I don't know if they're faculties in the case, but is that something that's normal, or is that something that you specifically chose?
Well, not exact. It's not normal, but I specifically wanted to do that after my third year of university, and so after that, when I came here, I did a data analytics certificate in York University to bridge that gap with technology and HRIS. And those skills helped me in my job right now. Yeah. So again, like there's no clear path, but you have to kind of make your own, I guess.
And can you describe some of your internships that you had? So maybe like the first day of work for one of them, and describe kind of that process. What was it like? Was it what you expected, or was it something totally different?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So basically, my first internship was at a charity, and they helped homeless people to get off the street in Dublin, all over Ireland, but that branch focused for people in Dublin. Basically, what happened there was how I got the job. I was president at my society in college, university, sorry, for a charity called St. Vincent de Paul, and we did a lot of charity events. So because of that experience, my professor introduced me to this charity called Focus Ireland, and I had an interview and I got the internship. The internship was in HR, and my first day at the job was kind of daunting, honestly, because I didn't know what to expect. I thought I would go straight into working, but what happened the first day was they just walked me around all of the sites that they had and explained and kind of taught me about the homelessness problems in Ireland and why it happened, and I got to meet two people as well and get to hear their stories. So yeah, that was my first day at the job.
Yeah. And what about kind of the subsequent like work effort?
Yeah, work.
Like what was the process to do that? How did you start like being effective in coding or whatever is that the HR systems that you were doing?
So that internship wasn't about it was an HR administrator internship. It wasn't I did have access to the HR system there. However, I wasn't doing anything coding wise. And the work that I did was actually for the graduate program. They needed to hire 12 new social workers for the homeless. And basically what happened was they taught me, as a team, we went to 3 universities to present in a career fair. Then we went to a class also to present. And then what happened was at the end, when work was ramping up, I kind of took lead on the graduate program and started interviewing people, giving them assessments and just making sure and coordinating interviews with hiring managers to make sure that 12 people got hired. And yes, 12 people got hired in the end. So I'm happy to say that it was kind of successful. Yeah.
Sounds good. So sounds like that you were able to kind of make a difference because obviously
Yeah,
those 12 people being hired, hopefully they helped kind of the homeless population in
yeah,
Ireland.
of
And
course, yeah,
obviously but before that, I mean, it was the volunteering and doing kind of the extracurriculars, being president of a club helps, right?
yeah,
And to
yeah,
network with your professor helps as well, so
yeah,
that you can kind of land those connections.
of
And
course,
obviously you would have done a good job as a president, so that people would want to vouch for you.
yeah,
Um, one thing that I wanted to chat about, because I know when we connected, one of the things that you mentioned is you actually have a physical disability, and
yeah,
with all the stuff we talked about, you wouldn't have known, right?
yeah,
I wouldn't have known. But I'm wondering if you care a little bit about kind of that experience, because
yeah,
everything else seems so normal,
yeah.
yet you did it all with a little bit more challenge. But would you mind sharing a little bit of kind of the stories around that?
Yeah, of course. So about my physical disability first, so my left arm does not function, especially like if I can show it real quick, my left hand doesn't function. So basically I can move the arm, but I can't move this part in a way. So basically that kind of renders the arm not useless in a way, but you can't really do anything with it. And because I'm not used to actually using it, I don't use it very often.
Mm,
Maybe to carry some stuff with my this part with the elbow and stuff like that, but
right.
other than that I don't really use it, which I really should. But it is what it is, and there's some stories about that. So actually there's a funny story that happened in the second internship, my first day at the second internship. I also did an interview there. However, I guess they did not notice, and I don't tell them about the disability at all. So what happened was I go into the first day at the job, and they tell me to organize all of the uniforms and put them on shelves and just fold them neatly and stuff like that, and maybe do some for all the wait staff, because it was a hotel, right?
Okay.
And basically I just couldn't put them on hangers. I couldn't
Mm,
put them on the uniforms on hangers, because it's I could, but it took me like four times as more time than a normal person would, or a person without any disability would. So I go to them and I go to them, my manager, and say, look, I understand, I just can't do this, sorry. And they only realized then that there was a problem, and they
mm.
started asking a lot of questions about it. And then of course, after a while they just gave me some other tests, but that's just like a funny story that happened, I guess, because people didn't realize that there was an issue in the first place.
Well, I thought that was something amazing in the conversations where, again, you go through the whole conversation. They went through a whole interview process. And
Yeah,
then only after you started, they realized, oh, okay, you have a disability, which kind of shows the point that like you don't need to let it hold you back, right?
yeah, of
It's
course,
just
yeah,
something that, well, some of them are a little bit more apparent, but oftentimes it's something that can be overcome.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
and I guess how has it been well, helpful or not helpful for you in the past? Because at least in our previous conversations, you talked about how it's in some cases a bit of a like an advantage for you, where well, not so much an advantage, more that you treat it as something that is kind of a normal part of your life. So I'd love to hear a
Yeah,
little bit more about the mindset part of it for you.
yeah. So the mindset, of course. So my mindset, yes, it kind of sucks at the end of the day. However, you just do the best with it you can, and of course, I don't treat it as a complete, disadvantage, because there are some advantages to it.
Yeah.
For example, my experience, as I said, because of the difficulties that I have, and the experiences I have to overcome, I learn differently, and I analyze things differently, and I learn how to adapt really quickly.
Mm,
And because of that, I think it gives me an advantage in just going into a new job, adapting really quickly, learning really quickly, and doing whatever I need to do. Because of this, I always need to solve problems, because if I cannot do something with the one arm, unfortunately, if I don't figure it out myself in a way, nobody's gonna show me, and I'm just not never gonna do the stuff that I need to do in that sense. So I guess that's the positive part about it. And of course, um, you can also add, again the diversity part of it. Again, it's just brings a different perspective to work, to life than other people. And so I guess people value my opinion on some certain topics, such as diversity and disability as well.
That's awesome. So sounds like that you're doing well for yourself. You just started a new job, and you're continuing on. Hopefully, you'll be able to meet all the hiring quotas and whatever that they have set out for you. But what are some of the SWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier, that you'd share with younger Paul? So I don't know if there's certain milestones along the way that you want to share, but maybe one or two or three different pieces of SWIKE that you'd share with yourself.
Of course. So the first thing I would share with myself is start networking really early. So basically, what I mean by that, if you're in the first year of university or just starting, try to connect with your professors, get to know them, get to know their hobbies, get to know them as people, and just introduce and show the best side of yourself. So for them to remember you in the future for any opportunities that they might have, or you just might give or just asking for life advice even, I think that's really important. And just broadening your horizon to different things as well. So another thing I would say is, don't focus on one thing, but have 5 or 6 concise goals that you want to achieve in a couple of years, and actually strive going towards them. Don't just have one goal and just kind of try to achieve that goal. Have 5 or 6. Yes, one or two might fail. However, the other four will succeed, and that will shape your future in a way. One more thing I would say that I would tell to myself, I would say, let me just have a think for a second, if that's okay. I guess also don't try to enjoy yourself in university as much as you can. Of course, grades and other stuff and extracurricular activities are important. However, if you are not happy in your life and as a result of just focusing in university all the time, just try to broaden your horizon again. Go out with friends once in a while. Just don't if there's a test, of course, study for it, but don't worry too much about it. It'll be fine in the end. I guess those would be my main lessons that I wish I knew before. But yeah, that's about it. Those are the main ones usually.
That's awesome. And if I were to provide my commentary, I guess in reverse order, so like trying to enjoy yourself, definitely. I think that's super important, where a lot of people focus on grades, and you need to make sure that you do well, of course, because that's why you're in school. But I talk to so many people where they say like what the most important things that they learned were outside of the classroom, right? And oftentimes a lot of young folks, especially nowadays, they overload themselves with the extracurriculars, the volunteer, and it almost seems like an arms race where everyone's trying to outdo. It's like, I'm the president of a club, well, I'm the president of 2 clubs, I'm the president of 3 clubs, and everyone tries to do more and more and more. But at the same time, you do need to enjoy yourself, have fun, explore, I think is the other part, where gain new experiences. I think that kind of dovetails with your second one about not focusing on one thing. Give yourself some options. Well, and there are some people who know exactly what they want, and if you truly know what you want, well, then go for it. But within there's probably 5 or 6 sub goals that you can take a look at. But if you are someone who's interested in science and business and reading and writing and stuff like that, well, why not do all of it, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to do all of them at the same time, but maybe one after the other, or like this for a week, that for a week, that for whatever. But to explore, I think is super important, and having kind of multiple goals, because I think too many people limit themselves. And the first part that you mentioned about networking, I definitely agree with that. It's funny how some folks don't treat their professors as people. They're just authoritative figures that come down with their red markers and give you marks and stuff like that. But they are people, and oftentimes they can be a good connection into because they will know people out there. They're connected, and I think asking for advice is a great thing, because
Yeah.
most people want to share, especially if you are a reasonably good student. Now, if you're a horrible student in class, maybe they
Yeah.
might not give you the best advice. But if you're kind of reasonably good and they see kind of the effort that you're putting, most people will be willing to provide that advice, which I think is
Yeah, and one more point that I want to touch on, which I just remembered because you said explore. Basically, I traveled all around Europe when I was in university. Like I went to Germany, I went to Netherlands, I went to Portugal, I went to Munich is in Germany, but I also went to Berlin. I went to Greece, I went to Poland, I went to a lot of places, Prague as well. So I guess if you can, if you like it, also travel and get to know other cultures. You'll learn a lot from those experiences, and all cultures have a different aspect, like different outlook on life, you could say. So you can just mend your opinion and your outlook on life from getting all of those experiences and kind of internalizing them, analyze them, and get the best life goals for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think that's one of the things that I wish that I did more in university. I wish I did like an exchange program outside of the country, or like did like a work abroad or something like that. I was too chicken to do that, because I thought, oh no, I can't do that, or I can't survive, and I didn't want to really kind of jeopardize all of the other stuff. So maybe it was a little lack of confidence or what have you, and I didn't want to deal with the rejection of not getting into those programs as well. So I think if I could give myself advice when I was younger, I definitely would do that. And to your point, you get to experience a whole bunch of different cultures, and you broaden your horizons, get different perspectives, and probably get to taste a lot of nice food from elsewhere around the world. Very authentic as well. So I think that's amazing. So if folks want to connect with you, Pol, where could they reach out to you, and what are some kind of future aspirations that we can look forward to catching up with you on?
Yeah, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that would be the best place to connect with me on. Just send me a message. I will read all of them and try to, if you need anything or just want to have a chat, I'll be happy to answer. And my future aspirations, I guess, well, the first thing I want to do is get my driver license. I know it's not in the work context. However, I got my G1 recently, and I can get my G2 in February, so I'm gonna work on that. So that's one huge thing that will be just much easier for me when I get a G2. And my other future aspirations, I guess, just develop myself, learn different skills, learn more about Workday. Actually, I think of even maybe taking a certificate on Workday just to like legitimize my experience, you could say. And also, I want to, since I explored a lot of European countries, now I want to explore Canada a bit, because I never truly went to any other Canadian city except Ottawa. So I want to travel to different provinces and see how life is there.
Sounds good. And I think you were able to share a lot of useful words of wisdom and your experiences, and hopefully we can have you back to discuss other things, whether it be kind of the whole mindset thing, or the decisions back, and maybe different cultural cultural differences between the various areas, since you've been kind of around and had to kind of adapt to it appropriately. But thanks so much, Pol, for being on the show, and then hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
No, thank you so much, Luki. It was a really nice time.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Lukidanu, Lukidanu, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.